Wells Fargo employee found dead in office after 4 days. Stay tuned. I will tell you my thoughts. Welcome back. I am Fred Feliciano, the CEO of Critical Conversations HR. We will be going over a Yahoo Finance article in regards to Wells Fargo and their employee passing away on site. Wells Fargo employees' disturbing death details give office workers pause. What happens if you die on the job? The news of a Wells Fargo employee's body being found in her cubicle 4 days after her death has sparked outrage and questions nationwide. 60-year-old Denise Pudhomi clocked into work at the company's Tempe, Arizona office at 7 a.m. on Friday, August 16th. Sadly, she never made it home. Her death went unnoticed for days until a colleague discovered her body slumped over her desk in a cubicle away from the main aisle. It's really heartbreaking, a Wells Fargo worker told 12 News. I'm thinking, what if I were just sitting there? No one would check on me. Another employee who exclusively spoke to 12 News anonymously explained that the employees in the Tempe office work remotely, but the building has 24/7 security. That employee suggested someone should have found Purhomi sooner. That's the scary part. That's the uneasy part, the employee said. It's negligence in some part. The Tempe Police Criminal Investigation Bureau is now investigating with the full cooperation of Wells Fargo, but does not suspect foul play, and the Maricopa County Medical Examiner is working to determine the cause of death. What happens if you die on the job? The circumstances of Pudhomi's sad demise may get you thinking, what happens if I die on the job? Here's what you need to know. If you die at work, for instance, from a fatal slip, trip, or fall, or deadly contact with workplace objects, equipment, or substances, your dependents, like your spouse or your children, may be eligible to receive survivor benefits. The primary mechanism most employers use to provide these benefits is workers' compensation insurance. Your family may also be able to claim reimbursement for funeral expenses and burial cost up to a maximum amount provided by state law. However, if you die of natural causes like a heart attack or stroke in the workplace, your employer's workers' compensation insurance will typically not pay out death benefits unless it's proven that the working conditions or job stress directly contributed to your death. Uh, Prudhomi's cause of death was still under investigation at the time of writing, so it is unclear whether insurance will pay out in this case. If your death is down, if your death is down to employer negligence, your dependents may be able to sue for wrongful death. In cases where work conditions might have exacerbated a pre-existing condition, there should be room for legal claims, but it's generally difficult to prove. We'll stop there. So, here are my thoughts. First and foremost, we don't have the full story yet. A lot of people are sensationalizing this story. Speaking of people being outraged that this occurred, we don't know the full story. We don't know where this person was stationed in relation to others. The article mentioned that a lot of employees in that specific office were remote, so it's possible no one kept tabs on who's coming in and exactly when. Um, what we do know is that somebody dying in the office is obviously very tragic. It's something that nobody wants to experience, and we don't have to want to deal with this in our workplace because we deal with death in our personal lives, and then when this hits, work, it's even more traumatizing. So I mentioned employees being traumatized. And one thing to think in mind if I'm the HR person over at Wells Fargo is that which I'm sure they do have an employee assistance program. They should be providing on-site crisis counseling to those employees and offering crisis counseling to any remote workers. One argument that someone made online was that why didn't her manager check on her? From what we know is that uh, she clocked in on August 16th, the Friday, and her body was discovered the following Monday, which is technically 2 business days. It's very common for managers, all depending on what kind of role you have, not to check in with your employees on a daily basis. Uh, I'm assuming she has a banking role, probably is a very autonomous employee in terms of what she did. So her manager may not have needed to check in with her on a daily basis. In terms of my concerns about the situation, first and foremost, condolences to her family. um, my heart goes out to the family and goes out to her coworkers who worked with her and knew her and hopefully had a great relationship with her. I mentioned prior the EAP, and their EAP should be dispatched and should be on site to handle crisis counseling. In terms of potential liabilities for Wells Fargo, um, that would be very hard to prove at this moment. We don't have an autopsy. We don't know what she died of. And we don't know whether somebody finding her would have saved her at the moment. That's something that we don't know. The article mentioned 24/7 security. Most likely, I would assume with a company like Wells Fargo that that would be outsourced. They would outsource that function to a security company, and liability may fall on that specific security company if they did not discover her body. But then again, you would need to prove that discovering her body that Friday during a routine check would have potentially saved her. And that's very hard to prove medically. Also, if the security happens to be employees of Wells Fargo, they obviously would need to check on their internal procedures in terms of how often they're doing checks and what to do when a security officer does find someone. So that's my feedback on the situation. At the moment, we don't have the full story. My condolences go out to the family. Um, let's wait and see how she passed away. And hopefully, Wells Fargo can answer questions about the security company, whether it's outsourced or internal, and whether they were tasked with doing routine checks and why those checks were not conducted if that were in place. Take care.